Okay, I'm dressed in my tank top and everything. Actually, I had a nice shirt on earlier. My CIY shirt, CIY Christ in Youth, which is coming up in about another month. Taking the high schoolers down to Boca Raton in Florida, and we're going to get our Christ worship on. Yeah. Okay, but that's not what this is about. This is about when order replaced the light. I got a number of books here. I'm going to tell you what I've handed out. I've had good book sales for the first shoot. It's been about 3.5 weeks that this book's been out, and I've had, from what I can tell, good sales. I probably sold, um, I think somewhere around 50 or 55 of actual sales. The other items that the other things is I've given away probably about 20-25 copies. Some of the people I don't know, some of the people I know, I've given a lot out to church. I'm sending out a few to some giveaways on Facebook and Instagram, which will have more coming here pretty soon. Oh man, I'm wearing my meta glasses and everything too. My meta glasses, just in case somebody calls, I prefer to answer. If anybody has meta glasses or hasn't used them or anything, just something they should know is that they are incredible with talking to people on the phone. So let me move some stuff around and we'll get into this. I'm going to start having some live questions and answers as well. I just think that's awfully helpful. So, and we can discuss all things Antediluvian Saga, all things book. Book 2 is coming out pretty soon. It's getting, it's at the publisher right now. It's getting edited. They came out with a book cover, but it's not exactly what I want. I think I'm having one drawn. This guy does computer drawings, so I'm hiring him, even though I didn't want to really spend more money on the cover. I wanted my publisher to take care of it. I feel like what I have to do with this, we're more than just me. It's more than just me making money. In fact, I haven't really made any money off of it after everybody I've paid and everything. But it's important to have this book in the hands of readers. So let's just talk about a few things about the book. How about we start with when a book comes out, how hard it is to get people to read it. Actually, it's funny because the people that have read the book are unexpected readers. I guess I expected kind of my friends, family to read it. They just aren't readers yet. Audiobook will be out in about 10 days, and I'm sure there's quite a few that are going to get into the audiobook. But in the meantime, I think the book in and of itself, it has to be an organic read. I've spent probably a total of maybe $60 on ads and whatnot. Not a whole lot, just to get it out and to get some free copies into people's hands and to get them reading. I did get some reviews on Goodreads. I got a few of them. One from a friend of mine. She's fantastic. She just read it out of blue, read it in a couple days, and said she loved it. I had quite a few discussions with her. She asked where book 2 was going, where the series was going, what's happening with that. And it was really neat. I had another one from a gentleman from outside the country, and he was just like, I can't believe how you integrated everything into it. So I like that. So what can I say? I will be happy to get more books into the hands of people. I would like to get this book out. Book 2, like I said, end of summer. Really, what I was told, and I'm sorry about that, is that these type of books, these type of series, take book 2 and 3, maybe 4 to get people really invested into it. My best conversations are with Daniel Silva, best known New York author and New York Times best-selling author, and he has about 36 books, and he's gotten me into conversations with some literary agents. I don't know which way to take it because I'm not sure I don't really want to spend a whole lot of money. I'd rather it be organic growth, and we could talk about that when I start doing live streams and whatnot. But the other author that read this and gave me really constructive criticism is the one that got me with this publisher to get this book published in the first place. When I wrote this book, I wrote it. This is 13 years in the making. Okay, I had the outline for this book back in 2013. Okay, I was working in the oil fields. It was during the last recession. A few years into the recession, I was really into reading the Bible. Not reading the Bible. I was listening to it on Bible on CD. So that's to date me back then. But I was obsessed with listening to it. And there were so many parts in the Old Testament that just got me going like, what is going on here? And one of the things that kind of got me into it was, what if all the mythological gods, all the legends, all the people that we hear about in all these different cultures and whatnot, what if they were really actual individuals that actually lived during the time pre-flood? That's what all the antediluvian means, is pre-flood. Antediluvian is the time before the flood. But what if all these people just actually lived and they actually kind of took over the city? So my whole thing is a basis from Genesis 6. And Genesis 6 is one of those that really starts kind of crazy. So let me actually just read this for you guys, because last time I did this video, I did not read it. But this is a New Living Translation, the NLT. It's kind of Bibles for Dummies. It doesn't sound as poetic as a King James Version or even a NIV, New International Version, but I like how it just breaks it down into simplicity for you. And it's actually, you look at what it says and then you listen to other translations and it's spot on. So here we go. Genesis 6, a world gone wrong. And then the people began to multiply on the earth, and daughters were born to them. To them? Who knows? I mean, of course, they were born to people, but who knows? The sons of God. Okay, and that term, the sons of God, comes up in other parts too. I think it's either Ezekiel or either Jeremiah or Isaiah. I think it might be Isaiah, actually, where he talks about the sons of God. It actually talks about it in Job as well. He talks about the sons of God, and when he's talking about the sons of God, he's talking about angels. So the sons of God saw the beautiful women. Okay, makes sense. Not just men, but the sons of God saw the beautiful women and took any they wanted as their wives. That's verse 2. Verse 3, then the Lord said, my spirit will not put up with humans for such a long time, for they are only mortal flesh. In the future, their normal lifespan will be no more than 120 years. Because when you go back to 5 and the genealogy of Adam and everything, which I was already on that page, they talk about Adam lived 930 years, Seth lived 912 years, Enosh lived 905 years, Kenan lived 910 years, Mahalalel lived 895 years, Jared lived 800. It lived 962 years. Enoch lived 300 years before he was taken up. He actually never died. Methuselah lived 969 years. He's the longest one in the Bible. Lamech, after his son, lived 770 years. And then we had Bible after Noah was 500 years old. He became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Okay, so 120 years. Then verse 4, the main part. In those days and for some time after, giant Nephilites, or Nephilim, lived on the earth, for whenever the sons of God had intercourse with women. Then the sons of God had intercourse with women. They gave birth to children who became the heroes and famous warriors of ancient times. Let's just check out verse 5 to finish us off. The Lord observed the extent of human wickedness on the earth, and he saw that everything they thought or imagined was consistently and totally evil. So that's where that starts out with. And when I started reading those, and I kept listening to them over and over, and then to give context into the other books of the Old Testament, it seemed like they were talking about angels and that those were the giants that they had produced. And then the men of renown, the great men of renown, the heroes of old were the Nephilim that took over. And so automatically I was like, oh, okay, Zeus, Odin, Ra, Enlil, Uriel, all these Baal or Baal, if you want to call him, Moloch. Like they talk about in the Bible, Baal and Moloch a lot. And, but they only talk about them as idols because it's after the flood. So these people like these Nephilim existed before then. They had names, and then eventually they became stories, myths, legends that they built idols after, and they would sacrifice people. That was a big thing with like Moloch, is a lot of sacrifices were going on. And I will tell you, Moloch comes into play quite a bit in book 3. The main antagonist of book 1 is Baal. Okay, and all of the men of renown, well, a lot of them are in book 1 because my thought was, you know what, maybe these men of renown who were these Nephilim, who were the heroes of old, communicated with each other. Maybe they had a system where they're like, okay, Zeus is going to be in charge of this territory, Odin's going to be in charge of this one, Ra is going to get Egypt, and all these other gods, men of renown, had their cultures and their lands that they took over. And then there's the, as time goes on, stories turn into myth, turn into legend, turn into myths. So that's where this took place. So when I originally came up with this book, it was supposed to be about the antagonist. It was there. I didn't even really, in my original outlines, I didn't even have an antagonist. I didn't know who was going to be the antagonist of the book. I started writing it multiple times throughout the years, threw it away, because all I would talk about were the protagonists and how they were building up this society to corrupt, and these protagonists in my head and my theories and my thoughts were that, hey, maybe they built the pyramids, maybe they built the ziggurats, maybe they built all these places all across the world. And before the flood, I was always like, maybe this was Pangea. Maybe this was one land before there was a bunch of oceans. It was kind of all stuck together. When the flood came up, it said that most of the water came up from under the ground. It kind of alludes to the fact that they didn't have rain until the flood happened. And so in my book, there's no rain. There's just mist all the time everywhere. The lands are connected. All the men of renown talk. They're all kind of a guild. And I would say about a year ago, I kind of decided I was going to write the book again, but I decided instead of writing it completely with the antagonists, the people that were corrupting the world being the main characters, that there was going to be a protagonist, and that protagonist was going to be in the line of Adam. So you got Adam, and then and I kind of mentioned this a little bit, but Adam, Seth, Enosh, and then Kenan. And I was like, I like Kenan. There was a guy on YouTube that I really liked, Camp Kenan, and I just liked his name. I was like, you know what, maybe Kenan should be my main protagonist, and he's going to be the hero. And what happened was I started writing this book, and it started writing itself. So my son just came in. So I started writing the book with Kenan as the protagonist, and I think I liked it. I'm very religious. I feel like, I read my Bible every morning, and then I write for like an hour to 2 hours. Sometimes on the weekends even more, up to 3 hours. And so what I'm reading in my Bible almost translates right into what I'm writing, like what the main things we're supposed to get out of the book are. And so as I started writing and stuff, it just kind of wrote itself. And book 1 it's shorter. It's only 225 pages. It's a pretty easy read. There's a glossary at the end with some of the main protagonists and antagonists, so you can kind of get an idea, because all these names have meaning, and a lot of them, who knows how they're pronounced. I made up a few people. Kenan's got a protector. He's a giant. He's a Nephilim. Doesn't have any power besides just being a giant and incredibly strong, like most giants are. And his name's Anav, and he's my original character. And then I made some other ones, RL, Terza, Kemed, some other ones. Those names have meanings, okay, in Hebrew and Greek and whatnot, and they mean certain things. So the reason I picked the names is because they mean what they mean. Book 2 is Kenan really gets his voice. And book 1 is Kenan just kind of figuring stuff out. He knows about God. He's been told about God by Enosh, but he doesn't know what he's supposed to do or, what's going on. And he's being corrupted by the world around him. And the world is just very corrupt from these men of renown. And so that's kind of how I got the basis for book 1, when order replaced the light. And it is when order, so when the men of renown created this order in this system, they replaced the light, which is God. Now, God is still present. He still talks to us to this day. I still follow what he tells me to do to the best of my ability. Obviously, I'm human, so I'm a sinned, flawed individual. I mess up constantly. Okay, so if you're looking to me for moral authority, I can try to point you in the right direction, and I can help you out, and we can have great discussions. But I am going to disappoint you, just like every other human being on the face of the earth, unless you go back to Jesus Christ. So, as Christians, I do believe that our faith and our basis comes in the New Testament. Testament means covenant, means promise. So when we say Old Testament, we say Old Covenant, Old Promise. We say New Testament, we say New Promise, New Covenant. That's the new covenant with God. We don't have these sacrificial times anymore. We don't have these ways that we try to please God in any other way than have a relationship with him through Jesus Christ. That's what the New Testament is. But my book is based in how we got to the New Testament from the Old Testament. It's in the silence that happens before the flood, and we're talking 8 chapters really before the flood happens, and so there's not a whole lot to go off of. But as you read throughout the other books of the Bible, there's a lot of things that allude to supernatural forces and the way things kind of happened. And so that's what my book is about. And it's basically entirely my perspective, my idea of how that kind of went. And it's set in a fictional, biblical fantasy. And it was before the flood, and there was the Men of Renown. And I wish I would have done the back slightly different. When I come out with a version 2, I'm going to explain it a little bit better. My worry was that I was going to focus too much on the antagonists and focus too much on the mythological gods and the Men of Renown, and not focus enough on what this is really about, which is connecting with the Father. However, we did get to the flood by not listening to the Father and by the corruption of the world. And so ultimately, you can kind of figure out how these books go. Corruption is going to get worse and worse. It's just going to get worse and worse to the point where there needs to be a reset, right? So with that being said, I hope you guys take a chance on this book. Audiobook comes out in 10 days. Unfortunately, everything's algorithm based, so I love talking about this stuff, but everything's algorithm based, so everything's going to be based off of reviews and the book getting passed around. I have no other way to do that. I don't want to pay a whole lot for advertising. I'd rather pay for editing and for people to make my book more readable than pay for it to be seen. I think too many times we want quick gratification, and we don't settle on organic feedback and what people really think. And I think there's something inside of all of us that we want to know what's going on. We have this innate ability to want to discover things outside of our purview and outside of our abilities. So that's what the book was about. The Men of Renown were actually what we call the gods of old in different cultures and whatnot. And these cultures all worshipped their own type of God in their own way, and took away from, the whole Bible is just people turning away from God, and when they turn away from God, they do stupid things. And if we can just keep him in the forefront and have a relationship with him, the sacrifices were supposed to be about giving back to God and whatnot. But what ended up happening was people were doing the sacrifices in spite of it, like feeling like, oh, I can get away with this. I'll just sacrifice a bull. I'll sacrifice a sheep, and I mean, we could see it in the earliest book of the Bible. I think it's the third chapter when they talk about Cain and Abel, and how Cain, he gave all of his best sacrifice, or not all of his best, but he gave his sacrifices to God, but he held back. He didn't give him his best. And then Abel gave his best, all the things he grew, all the grain and everything that was the best of the best, and he gave it to God. And God was so happy because it was just like, it was like he actually truly gave for the love that he had for the Lord, where Cain was giving because he was kind of told to give. And that's what happened in this entire time in the Bible, is we start to do things because we want something in return instead of just having a relationship with the Father. So book 1 starts this off, and it's all about connecting back with the Father. Book 2, I will tell you, it just kind of leaves off where Kenan's not trying to be a leader, but he's also not trying to be corrupted, and he's trying to get away so he could have his own relationship with the Father. And along the way, he meets a lot of people that end up following his cause and going with him. And so I hope you guys give this book a chance. This was kind of more just one of those, let's talk about this. Let's talk about sales. Let's talk about how to get your book out. I don't know how to get your book out. But I would like people to give it a chance, give it a read. The prologue and the prelude tell you a lot of context before you start the book, and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback on that it's like you really set that up so that we knew what I was talking about up at that point. I don't think I sold the book enough to the people that are inquisitive about my ideas. That's where I think I can do better in the future, and we'll just see what happens. I will tell you, I'm basically done with book 3. I just finished it. I have to go back all the way through it and reread it again and recorrect everything and make things sound better. And I go through each chapter probably 6, 7, 8 times, because it starts with ideas and I'm just typing away, and then when I go back through, there's like, oh, this doesn't make sense, but this was the idea I had with this. Okay, so I got to fill this out. Okay, I got to make this sound better. Okay, I'd spend so much time in a thesaurus, it's ridiculous. Like I just, sometimes I'm like, maybe I shouldn't worry about. No, I need to worry about that, because people want something that's digests well, right? They don't want something that just has a decent idea that isn't digestible. So book 3 is more about having the comforts, and during those good times, not seeing how much we need God. So book 3 is, in my opinion, each book's gotten better. I really enjoyed this book. I read it probably 10 times myself. But book 2 is a lot more adventure. It's a lot more to it. It's a lot more development. And book 3 is very, it kind of jumps around a little bit, but book 3 has a lot of Seth in it. We go back to Kenan's grandfather, Adam's third son, Seth, the lineage that was carried on. And it said, what did I say? He lived like 900 years. There's a lot of time to develop that character. In my books, Adam's still alive. Nobody's seen Adam for a long time. He's so ashamed of what happened in Eden that he hasn't been seen in a while. So book 2's more about, I would say, mercy, and figuring out what mercy is versus judgment. And then book 3 is kind of throws everything out the window. I don't know if you're going to like the way book 3 ends. It's a bit of a twist, but it's fun. And it's going to set up for book 4 really well. But book 2 is figuring out what mercy is versus what judgment is, and how we all deserve judgment, but we all have this certain thing in our heads that wants mercy as well. And when you combine mercy with judgment, that's when you can get grace. I mean, we deserve what we deserve. When we do bad things, we deserve judgment. But sometimes we'll get mercy instead, but we still need the consequences, need to face those consequences of that judgment. And when somebody else takes on that judgment for us, has the mercy for us to take on the judgment for us, that's grace. And that's what Jesus Christ did for us. And that's what kind of that it leads to in that book. So I hope you guys are excited about that. Lay down some comments if you watch this video, because I might just give away some books. You could send me an email. My email's in the description, and I will stutter a ton, but the description for my YouTube page. And I'm hoping to get this thing going and have some good conversations with people, and we can just all kind of discuss what's happening. I did write some questions on here. Some were asked from other people. But I kind of went over them already. Like, what if mythology was remembered history? That's what the book's about. I mean, I think there's a lot to that. Maybe mythology was a lot more of real stories than we give credence to. So, why Genesis 6 fascinates so many people? I mean, it's because we're told over and over about angels and the fallen angels, and we were told the fallen angels got trapped in the middle of the earth by God. But what happened to those Nephilim? What happened? They corrupted women. They did those things. So how Tolkien and C.S. Lewis influenced the Antediluvian Saga. Yeah, I went by T.A. Snyder for a reason. This is homage to J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. Those are books that I was obsessed with when I was in high school and out of high school. I felt that when you could create a fantasy world that still leads to God's laws, that is a fantastic thing. And I wanted my fantasy world to be based in the Bible, as if it could actually happen. Tolkien and Lewis did theirs in a fantasy world, so different with the same type of themes involved, right? Mystery, silence in scripture, unanswered questions, myth, longing, deeper meaning and understanding, spiritual symbolism, and ultimately world building, like what happened before the flood. So the world before the flood wasn't primitive. No, I do not think so. I think the Nephilim, the fallen angels, all of them brought technologies and taught man things that we weren't supposed to know. I think after the flood, those were long forgotten. But I think we need to remember that there's a lot of things we don't know about. When I look at the pyramids, I'm like, something sophisticated happened, and I don't think they were tombs, and I think they were used as like power plants, and I think that there's a labyrinth underneath Egypt for a reason, and all these hidden cities under the ground and stuff. So it wasn't primitive. The architecture was amazing. It was amazing. It was engineering feats that we still talk about today. So I think metallurgy, I think knowledge that we didn't know about before, battery, all sorts of stuff I think existed that we just don't have a real understanding of how that went down before. So let's see, is the book about a real battle? No, it's not even really about a physical battle, although book 2 has quite the physical battles as well. Book 1 is more about memory, truth, submission, a spiritual battle that we all seem to have with the Lord and stuff. And to go back to that fantasy with J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, it always seemed to me that you have to be able to have an imagination to really conceive God. Like if you can't conceive an all-encompassing, all-powerful, eternal, infinite God, then you're going to struggle. And I think fantasy in books exercises that in your brain to realize, maybe, and you start thinking about things, and then it's a lot easier to read the Bible because it gives you a premise where you don't have to be right, that there's a lot we don't know, right? So what makes a story feel true? I think it has to have a basis in something. I think it has to have a longing. I think it has to show some sacrifice by the protagonist. You have to have hope. You have to have transcendence of your being, of the person, and I think it has to have all those things in an interesting way, and it has to be just get you thinking. I think it has to leave you thinking. That's one of the things that Daniel Silva said about me is like, man, your book left me thinking. In fact, the other Ed Hall, who was the other guy who got me with his publisher, who talked me into getting this published after I wrote it. I wasn't planning on getting it published, but I gave it to him one day at church, and later that day, probably about 4:45, like I gave it to him at like 9 a.m. We went to church, we served, or did all this stuff. At 4:45, he sends me a text. He's like, "I'm almost done with your book," and I'm just like, "Almost done with my book? You read it that quickly?" He's like, "I couldn't put it down." He's like, it leaves you wanting more, and I was like, man, I think that's the highest praise. I that's the same thing I got from Daniel Silva, was that it left you thinking and wanting more. So why modern culture lost wonder? I think a lot of it has to do with human arrogance. I think it has to do with the same things that I battle with getting my books sold, the algorithm of the world, what appeals to us, what gets us going in a specific direction. And it's like marching orders, and we look at things, and these things are so much better, when in reality what's best for us is maybe not to have those things. I think it's a loss of awe. I think they lost wonder because there's not enough mystery. We feel like we know it all. It's that arrogance again. We need instant gratification instead of wanting more, instead of realizing we don't know very much. So I'm going to cut this video off because I have no idea how long it is. I'm sure it's about 30 minutes. And I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you get the opportunity to get to know who I am. Yes, I'm wearing a tank top. I live in Florida. I live in Central Florida. Okay. And this isn't the most appealing way for me to sit here. I was wearing a t-shirt earlier. But I just wanted to make this video real quick. And so I hope you forgive me in that regards. And I hope you enjoy the book. If you want free books, you know where to get a hold of me.